Some of you may be following the post-Afghanistan saga of migrants pouring into Western countries with barely a by your leave to the actual inhabitants. Watching the feeble dithering of our border force, you might be tempted to ask yourself, how could this get any worse? Well, recently it did. Because if there's one thing worse than a horde of migrant men, it's Kim Kardashian. I'm not making this up. Kim Kardashian West funds flight to bring female Afghan footballers to the UK.
Isn't she American?
Yeah. Members of the Afghanistan Women's Youth Development Team have been airlifted to the UK in an evacuation flight funded by Kim Kardashian West. The 35 female players and their families, 130 people in total, touched down at Stansted Airport shortly before 4 a.m. on Thursday, according to the Rocket Foundation. The squad had been in Pakistan on temporary 30-day visas since escaping from Afghanistan following the takeover by the Taliban, but faced being sent back once their asylum period ran out if another country had not accepted them.
Well, Pakistan didn't have the heart to extend the visas.
No, they didn't.
No. Funny that.
Yeah.
I'm going to mention, because I find it annoying, because people will say, well, you can't keep them in Pakistan because the Taliban exists in northern Pakistan.
Mm-hmm.
They used to be in Afghanistan for the last 10 years.
Yes.
Where the Taliban also existed for the last 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
So, just seems like a moot argument to me.
Yep.
But no, we'll take them to Britain. Why not? Fantastic.
Indeed. And it continues. A privately funded charter flight brought them to the UK, where they will begin their new lives following a 10-day coronavirus quarantine in hotel accommodation. And a representative for reality star Miss Kardashian West confirmed to the PA news agency that the flight was funded by her and her Skims brand. A government spokesperson said, UK government, like others we have brought to the UK from Afghanistan, many others, the Afghanistan girls football team will receive a warm welcome, support and accommodation. I'll get my wallet out. The government is committed to doing all it can to support those most in need, including vulnerable women and girls at risk who have had to flee Afghanistan.
That's not a justification for them having a right to come to the UK.
Yeah.
The justification is whether or not they're in immediate danger of being murdered.
Yes.
And they're in no more danger than they were, by the looks of it. Therefore, no.
Yeah.
Because it's like Douglas Murray. If you grant it that anyone in poverty or whatever should be able to come to the UK, well, you've just invited two-thirds
It's
of
the whole
planet.
world. Yeah, it doesn't work. So let's just summarize this. A load of people from Afghanistan were flown from Pakistan to Britain by an American celebrity.
Yeah.
Where they will now reside permanently. So what the hell does this have to do with Britain, you might be tempted to ask? Why couldn't they stay in Pakistan? Pakistan has a women's football team. It's not like they're anti-women's football. Pakistan is also a Muslim country, and these girls and their families are presumably Muslim, like 99% of Afghans. Or, if Pakistan is unsafe, why not fly them somewhere else? Like Kim Kardashian's beachside manor in Malibu. Why does our government have to give them a warm welcome with our money? And so, as you look here, if we can go to the next image.
That's her place in Malibu?
Yeah, it's pretty swish, isn't it?
Has she got a mansion in the UK as well?
No. No,
So-
she's got mansions virtually everywhere else, as we shall get into, but not the UK as far as I can ascertain.
So where the hell are the migrants staying? Is it just our problem now?
Oh, yes.
Oh, great, thanks.
Yeah. So, we're looking at this glorious beachfront here. I think there's just about enough space to play football there, don't you think? Probably be a lot nicer than Slough, where they'll probably end up playing football, or
All that
Leeds.
too.
Yeah. But that's just one of their mansions. They could put another football team in this one. Next image. Again, there's a bit of construction work going on, hopefully to build a football stadium. But this is just an enormous mansion in Hidden Hills. And it turns out that these two enormous mansion complexes barely scratch the surface of the property empire that Kim Kardashian is involved in. If we go to the next article and just scroll all the way down this article, it's just photos of all of their mansions. Now, while that's playing in the background, I did a little calculation to work out what the total square footage of this property empire was. And it turns out that they have a grand total of 105,679 square feet of indoor mansion. How much does it cost to keep that all nicely air-conditioned in the summer, Kim? I bet the carbon emissions for that are pretty heavy. Just for comparison, if we keep scrolling down, UK homes offer an average of 670 square feet of living space, which is the smallest since the 1930s.
I think we're also, the smallest in Europe?
Yes, yeah. We are, with the lowest rate of new build housing. So if we can go to the next article. Yep, our houses are tiny. There was a curious article I read on the...
Hang on, you're phrasing this as like, how could she do this to these poor football players? Put us in these tiny houses that we like rats live in, compared to her luxurious mansion.
Well, the point I'm getting at is that we don't live in tiny houses by choice. I would happily swap my tiny bedsit with Kim Kardashian's mansion. I mean, hit me up. I'm all for that. But we live in tiny houses because there is a housing shortage, because property prices are absurd and they're always going up. In British towns, you often have people who are paying too much to live in places that are too small. And this gets worse because of immigration. And I would say that build more houses is far less effective at solving the housing shortage than import fewer migrants, which seems like a no-brainer if this is the problem you want to solve, to make everyone's lives a bit easier.
Yeah, especially when they have no more right to be here than anyone else.
Yes. But so that was a nice little aside into Kim Kardashian flying migrants over here, but a lot of migrants are not arriving by air. This is also happening by sea. And we've had news today that, we've had news recently that between 27 and 31 people have drowned in the deadliest day for channel crossings. Boris Johnson and Emmanuel Macron have said they will do everything possible to stop the gangs responsible for putting people's lives at risk.
Darwin Award winners.
Mm-hmm.
I've got no sympathy for these people because we've reported on this previously. And they're not the first either. There was a chap a while back who went out, stole a dinghy, stole 2 like metal oars, and then went out with his mate, and they punctured it, and he drowned in the sea. And it's like, France is a safe country. You're not fleeing anything. Both of them had already applied for asylum and failed. So they were literally just chancers and liars. And I imagine it's going to be very similar with all these people. And also, the fact always remains that France is a safe country with a working asylum system.
Yes, absolutely.
They put themselves in this situation.
Yes.
It's entirely up to them.
It was entirely voluntary. No one forced them at gunpoint onto the boats.
No.
They paid with their own money, their own savings to get there.
If any native Frenchman or Englishman had done the same thing, we'd laugh at how stupid they were.
Because you're rolling our eyes into the stratosphere. Yeah. Now, the exceptions here, of
Exception
course,
for children, of
are
course.
the children, because, yes, of course, the children do not have the agency to get on the boats themselves, but they are being put on there by presumably their parents, or possibly relatives, or possibly strangers. And they're victims, complete victims of this tragedy. But if you look at the coverage of this incident, if we go to the next article, so this is from GB News, 5 women and a girl among dead after Channel crossing disaster. So this is 6 out of 27 people who were not fighting age men.
So I mean, I get the mention of the girl because, girl, not her fault. Sad, but 5 women, just like women most affected.
Well, yes, 20% of the migrants are women and children, and 80% are young men on this boat.
Right.
But no one cares about the 80% of young men. Why does the media always ignore the men? Is it not a tragedy when men die? Whatever the reason, the result of this kind of coverage is that the public's minds are, trained to believe that the migrants are overwhelmingly desperate women and children, when the reality is that such people make up a tiny minority compared to the thousands of men who are illegally entering the country. And I'd just like to say here, as Callum has touched on, this is not a new problem. We've been saying for years that this will happen. Even The Guardian has been reporting on channel crossings. Go to the next article. Of course, they have their priorities straight. Concern for migrant safety as hundreds resume channel crossings. Yes, that's what people are concerned about in this.
It's like these stupid people who got on rafts that were unsafe by their own choice, not fleeing anything because they are already in a safe country. Those people are morons. If an English person did the same thing to try and go to France, you'd laugh at them.
Yep. Hundreds of people have arrived in the UK after crossing the Channel from 2 months ago, as several charities said the current humanitarian crisis in Afghanistan showed why people risk their lives to flee. Yes, the humanitarian crisis in Afghanistan shows why people risk their lives to flee France. I mean, great analysis there, Guardian. In other news, the cold weather in Antarctica shows why people eat sushi in Japan. How does one get an education grade low enough to write for leftist media?
I mean, I love the subtle denigration of France. There, it's basically Afghanistan,
Yeah.
basically the same place. I mean, the question always is asked as well: why are the native French homeless not doing the same?
Yes, that's true. That's a
They're
very
in a
good
worse
question.
situation than these people,
Mhm.
but they don't do it
No.
because they're not morons.
So how many people have come to Britain by this route? If we go to the next slide, some 25,700 people have risked their lives in these most dangerous shipping lanes this year alone. The government have already spent more than 200 million of taxpayers' money on deals with the French authorities that are not working. The situation is getting worse. The government's solution to the issue is part of its new plan for immigration, which would allow the eligibility of asylum applications to be partly assessed based on the method by which the person entered the country. A number of charities have spoken out against this planned deterrent, and I'm not even going to read out their statement because you can guess it for yourself. They believe that it's unfair discrimination to have any policy regarding migrants beyond parking them in a 4-star hotel on the taxpayer's dime, no questions asked.
Literally, because the thing is going to be: did you come from a safe country? Yes. Well, then go back.
Yes.
Well, that's discrimination.
Mm.
Yes. Good discrimination.
Yep.
Go back.
If we move to the image. And yeah, this is the rate of crossings. As you can see, it's just going up. It's just going up. There's nothing stopping it.
I remember first talking about this when Nigel Farage and whatnot made it a big story back in like 2020, and just never get any better. I mean, it's entirely. I mean, I've mentioned before, this is mostly a French problem. It is up to the French to stop this.
Yes.
And they don't want to.
It's just like the issue on the Belarusian-Polish border is a Belarusian problem. It is there entirely because Russia and Belarus have created it.
It's a weapon.
Yes.
Because that's the thing. The Belarusian government are deploying those migrants to try and make a crisis on the European border as a weapon against the European Union.
Yes.
The French are doing the same thing to us.
And the European Union, by the way, readily admits this. They claim that the migrants on their border are part of hybrid warfare being waged by the Belarusians and Russians against the EU and a deliberate attempt to destabilise the EU. Well, what is France doing, and the EU by extension, shipping 25,000 migrants across the Channel? And you do wonder why it's still called the English Channel at this point, because on any given day it seems like the majority of people on it are migrants. Maybe it should be called the Migrant Channel.
The Afghan Channel.
Yeah. Well, that's assuming they're all Afghans, which I think is a stretch.
No, they're not.
No, because
I think with the government report last time we looked at this, 51% are Iranian.
Iranian, that's interesting.
No war.
Yeah.
Safe country immediately on the border, Turkey, which they have to go through. They just stay there.
And I believe in previous ways we've had immigrants from places as far away as Somalia, as Libya.
But dude, the worst one I think was like Kenya.
Kenya.
It's just like, what? How the hell did you end up here?
That's a long walk, as Miles has demonstrated for us in the first segment.
I was going to do it.
And so just to recap, we touched on this last week. So the French are literally escorting migrant boats into UK waters. I mean, that seems like a waste of £200 million. Essentially, the government has gone, we'll give the French some money.
Unless you're French.
Oh, yeah.
If you're
It's
French,
great business.
Fantastic.
But our government, being strong and stable, has given the French £200 million. And what are they doing? They're literally escorting the migrant boats into British waters. They're doing nothing to stop this. They are creating this problem, and they should feel personally culpable for the tragedies and the deaths that we're seeing in the Channel. But why is this happening? And again, this is just a recap from last week. To the next article. Our Borders Chief is literally anti-borders. Paul Lincoln, who served as the Director General of the Border Force since 2017, he left with a speech saying borders are bad, and he stepped down from his £135,000 a year position. Excerpts of the speech had him quoting the Pogues, saying people are talking about immigration, emigration, and the rest of the bloody thing. It's all bloody crap.
Then whose fault is that? Man in charge of it?
Yep.
I mean, it's like, I remember, what was it, like the bus workers union boss or whatever was complaining that bus drivers were underpaid, in bad conditions, mistreated. It's just like, whose fault is that? You're the union boss.
Yes.
It's like, the guy in charge of the borders is like, yeah, the whole thing's crap. Who's to blame? Look in the mirror.
Yes,
Anyway.
absolutely. And our state institutions have agreed basically not to do anything about the migrant crisis, which overrides whatever the British people or even the government may want, if we move to the next article. So takeaways from this article: migrants attempting to cross the Channel to claim asylum in the UK will no longer be prosecuted, the Crown Prosecution Service CPS has said. An agreement was made between police, prosecutors, the National Crime Agency, Border Force and the Home Office, all unelected, over cases of illegal entry, also covering those arriving by lorry. They just agreed they're not going to do their jobs.
Sorry, but the criminal gangs in charge of the negotiations?
They're just not going to do their jobs.
Great. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Glad we're paying for this.
Yeah. I mean, this is what our taxes go for, right? Loads of institutions that do what they want. So all of this chatter from the left is directly responsible for the deaths of 27 people in the Channel this week. It's this chatter that persuades migrants they can just turn up in Britain and get a middle-class life handed to them on a plate, even when the reality is that many of them simply disappear into modern-day slavery in minority ghettos such as those in Leicester. It is leftist disinformation that creates this demand, that opens the borders all the way from Somalia to Greece to France, and that funnels the entire life savings of these migrants into the hands of disreputable people smugglers and vicious criminal gangs. And finally, it is leftist lies and activist outrage that dominates our state institutions and prevents British security forces from taking even the most common sense of measures to protect the British people and our society from what you might describe as a literal invasion. Meanwhile, the countries which they leave are hardly improved by this exodus of chancellors and adventurers, and continue to be failed states that produce more migrants long into the future. Leftists like to think they act from a place of compassion. Does this scenario look like compassion? Does this look compassionate? The social elites of the Westminster bubble may be able to insulate themselves from the damage which their luxury beliefs are wreaking on the rest of the country. But can they really call themselves compassionate when their policies ruin the lives of everyone else, from the perpetually televised migrants to the oft-forgotten British people?
If you enjoyed that segment from the podcast, The Lotus Eaters, you can go to lotuseaters.com and sign up to get access to all the premium content we have on the site.
Yeah, we've got absolutely loads of this. We've been doing this for over a year now, so we've got a massive library of content that we're really, really proud of. We've got loads of premium articles, which we have written by our in-house writers and external writers, such as this one by Hugo, which is talking about the great narrative of the World Economic Forum and how it's falling apart. The cracks are becoming visible. And we also have, for silver tier members and above, an audio track read by Jonathan Crow, who's a very, very good speaker, and this makes it easier for you. We also have our regular series, such as Contemplations, like this one, where I debate Josh about whether free will is an illusion or not. I am very firmly on the free will exists side of things, and Josh is wrong, but you can find out why if you go and sign up. We also have the epochs that Bo and I do, which is fantastic. At the moment, we're halfway through, well, 2/3 of the way through the series on Belisarius. Do you know who Belisarius is, Callum?
Go to reconquered Rome.
Yes, he did. He did, and
We lost it.
It's honestly a genuine tragedy, and it's a really sad tale. And we're just at the apex of his conquests at the moment. But next week, we'll get to enjoy the tragedy of it. It's really sad. But we also do loads of other stuff, like interviews that we did. One recently with Philip Tanzer, who's a men's rights activist and conservative activist. And in this second one, we end up talking about the sort of metaphysics of masculinity. What is it you're trying to uphold by being a man? And I think it's important. Lots there to learn. And he's a very interesting thinker anyway. We also have the book club, which is fantastic. We're about to record another one now, but this last one we did was Niccolo Machiavelli's The Prince. So if you want to get the most out of these books, you can join us there, because we've done a lot of work studying these. And we also do premium podcasts covering sensitive subjects, such as what happened to the January the 6th rioters. And we do slightly more academic ones, such as this next one about the origins of intersectionality. Where does the term come from? What's the point of it? Well, I went and read everything that Kimberly Crenshaw wrote about it, and, well, it's not good news, frankly.
In addition, you can also follow us on any of the social medias, such as Getter.com, so you can follow us there at lotuseaters_com, and also you'll be speaking at the Counter Conference conference.
Yes. Yeah, the Counter Conference at the London O2 on December the 8th.
Yes.
I'm going to be speaking on a panel with Jason Miller, Lawrence Fox, and a few others. It's going to be fantastic, so come down and see us there.
But anyway, if you'd like to get access to all that premium content or follow everything we do, please sign up at lotuseaters.com. Thank you and goodbye.